Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Tunnel Vision, a show brought to you by USCFootball.com. I'm your host, Keely, Eure, joined by Ryan Abraham and Shotgun Spratling. We have a fun show for you guys tonight. We're previewing USC's Saturday night 8 p.m. matchup against Cal. It'll be an interesting one. We'll talk about USC's injury updates. We got the latest from Clay Helton in his Thursday night press conference. We'll be talking about matchups to look for. I think everyone circled USC's wide receivers against this Cal experienced secondary. So we'll talk about that. Also, if you want to call us, free therapy, like I always say, week 11. You never know what you want to talk about. You can call us live, 512-4TUNNEL. We have operators standing by. And then you can tweet at us, #TunnelVision, and we'll put your tweet up on the screen. I believe we already have a tweet in the queue.
Ooh, nice.
About basketball, too. Sorry, Ryan. It'll be...
I've been to 2 of the basketball games, so I'm okay.
True, that's true. You're now a converted member of...
Yeah.
Sure.
But I don't sit with the peons. I sit with the athletic director courtside.
Hey,
that's what I like to do. So,
okay.
You know.
Nice flex on him, Ryan. And then,
where were you at the end of the game? Sitting right beside me.
I was sitting up, yeah, you know.
Okay. Oh, so
After
you were with the plebeians,
yeah,
right?
For the first half, I'm at, courtside.
Sure. But as always, whatever platform you're watching, whether it's YouTube, Facebook, or Periscope, we'll take your comments, questions, concerns, put them on the screen, answer them, all that good stuff. But guys, first up, let's start with injury updates. I know that's a big theme this season for USC. We got the latest from Clay Helton. Ryan, I guess let's start off with you. What did Clay say?
So few things. As far as the running back situation goes, Vavae Malepeai is going to be a game-time decision, along with Stephen Carr. Now, Stephen Carr should be a little further along with that hamstring injury. I'm kind of guessing that you're going to still see a steady dose of Keaton Christon, but I think my guess is both those guys are going to play. As you know, they both warmed up for the Arizona State game, and neither played. They came out in full pads, and then they were in street clothes after that. But I don't know. What do you think? That's my guess that they're going to play.
I'm warmed up. I mean,
So-
I think there was a little gamesmanship there.
Vi
Maybe.
kind of told the truth by accident about that. So that was a designated rehab day for both Vi and Carr. So they were not.
They were not planning on playing.
They were not planning on playing because they wanted their return to be on Tuesday, but they didn't want the first time that they were in full pads to be that Tuesday. So that's why they actually dressed out and rehabbed on Saturday.
Interesting.
It's interesting that they brought them along on that trip, which tells you the importance, both of them, or that they were really close and maybe they decided that on Friday or something.
Sure.
They brought them and maybe they went through something and said, okay, it's still not ready type of thing. But also the importance of them to the future is, okay, we need to get these guys. We can't wait till Tuesday. We need to go ahead and get that rehab day done now if we can type of thing. So I think that shows you how valuable those guys are. They brought them on the trip because guys like Marlon Tuipulotu weren't on the trip.
Yeah.
They usually don't bring injured players except for the captains, basically. And occasionally they'll bring, Holden Thomas last year.
Or Talanoa.
Just randomly, yeah.
He's a future captain, so he doesn't count.
Tell him that will be. Defensive tackle Marlon Tuipulotu practiced again this week, so he missed, like Shotgun said, he missed the Arizona State game, didn't make the trip. Brandon Keely got the start. I got to talk to him this week. Looks like it'll just be more of a rotation between those guys. My guess is he's going to get in there and play Shotgun.
Yeah, I think Marlon Tuipulotu sounds like he's going to be back. It was a little bit of a surprise that he wasn't ready to go last week. They were kind of giving him some veteran rest because he got rolled up on. He had some knee, ankle kind of issues. They didn't play him at all in the fourth quarter of the Oregon game, but it seemed like he was going to be fine to go, and then he actually injured his back during the middle of the week, and it was kind of a surprise that he wasned going to be ready to go on the trip.
They kind of made it sound like it was just like something minor, and then he totally didn't even make the trip.
Yeah, even for the coaching staff. Talk with some of the people I know on the coaching staff and around the staff, and they were like, that just came out of nowhere to an extent. But having him back is huge because he's been such a key to their defense in the middle throughout the season and stopping the run, especially with Cal. even if Chase Garbers is back, they need to be able to run the ball to be effective. So if you can stop the run up the middle, that helps out a lot.
And Marlon's probably the best run stopper. Or one.
Yeah, he
He's
definitely
up there.
is.
Most consistent.
He's a beast up there. He demands double teams a lot of times. If you want to be successful running the ball against USC, you have to double him, which opens up things for your linebackers and whatnot. So getting him back is going to be a big boost. Give a lot of credit to Brandon Keely. He's been playing really well this season as the third defensive tackle, and he played a ton of snaps. He played a career high in the game. Dejon Benton, his backup, I believe, played. He was the third guy in the rotation of the defensive tackles. I believe he played 3 snaps in the game.
Oh, wow. So pretty much Brandon Keely the whole way.
So Brandon Keely and Jay Tufele were in there a lot, or maybe Dejon was the 4th guy, but they did not rotate a ton of guys at those spots. Was my point that they did bring some guys in when they went to their pass rush unit, which, and by in I mean in, from Christian Rector and Drake Jackson kind of moved in. Christian Rector would be paired with Nick Figueroa some. He came in that pass rush unit. But that's when the defense tackles would get their breaks.
Yeah.
Was when USC could back up Arizona State in the 3rd and long.
Yeah, they bring their defensive ends to the defensive tackles, and they bring in some outside linebackers, try to get a little more pass rush.
Getting Abdul Malik McClain on the field and different things. So
yeah, Tyler Vaughn's too. So he practiced today. So I think there's some optimism there. I mean, that's USC's strength is the big 3 wide receivers. Now Drake London's come on and he's scored touchdowns in the last 2 games, but not having a Tyler Vaughn's, like some of the catches he makes, even if he doesn't have a big day, there's usually a catch or two. They're just like, I don't know how many other people are going to make that catch.
A trademark TV catch,
yes.
if you will.
Yeah, he practiced today. Clay Helton said earlier in the week that he was in a similar situation that Michael Pittman Jr. was last week, where wide receivers and you make a lot of catches. He got his ankle rolled up basically on, so it was minor ankle sprain, but we'll see where he was at as the week progressed. Seems like if he practiced today, that's all signs indicate that he should be good to go on Saturday, but you never know. He could get some swelling or something.
Yeah.
You take that shoe off type of thing. So we'll see where he's at. There's some options behind it. We've had the question, already asked is, if he's out, who would be his replacement? I think that you see Kyle Ford. I mean, you don't see Kyle Ford is what the person was asking. You see Drake London move out until they need 4 wide receivers. And then if you go 4 wide receivers, then you can do some different things with either Kyle Ford stepping in there or with John Jackson the third moving into a slot spot and Drake being on the outside, or Amon-Ra St. Brown being on the outside. So Amon-Ra St. Brown has played on the outside as well when they move Pittman inside. So you could see Pittman and St. Brown as the 2 outside guys and leave Drake in the middle. There's some different things they can do with those guys because you have some versatility there. Once they started moving them around about halfway through the season, it opens up things like that to be able to do a little bit more.
No, Velus Jones?
Velus Jones, I mean, it's just he's been the guy that's just been forgotten about.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
And if that's the guy they want to go to, their thing is they want their big 3 on the field, and if one of them goes down, then Drake London's kind of the next guy. So Drake London, in this game, they gave Michael Pittman a couple snaps off. You saw Amon-Ra St. Brown move out to the outside and Drake London be on the inside. And at the end, when Vaughns was out, I believe that's what it was as well. So I think that's probably a more likely case. When they go to 4 wide receivers, then maybe you see him or John Jackson. And just depending on, I said John Jackson first because he's an inside guy.
Yeah.
He's played more inside than outside. So Velus has played more outside this season than inside.
I just want to give a special shout out to Ulau Ulau, who I believe is Tester Troy from our OG Facebook days. He said, hey guys, just started my subscription to you guys. Love the coverage. So thank you for that. Thanks to everyone who took advantage of the deal we had over the weekend, right, Ryan?
Yeah, it's huge. We got a whole bunch of people signed up, some new members of the Peristyle, some old members that came back. You definitely want to check it out. The Peristyle is the biggest message board in the world, in the universe, covering USC football. We've been, I created it way back in '96, which is nuts. But it's just absolutely crazy. There's going to be most likely some big news coming in the next couple of weeks, so you definitely want to be on there.
That goes on the Peristyle first. So
yeah, a lot of insiders are there, people that are just maybe work at USC or boosters and things like that. So there's a lot of really interesting tidbits that get posted on the Peristyle. You want to be up to speed. That's kind of where you want to be.
For sure. Now, talking about injuries and talking about potential running backs coming back, how much could that alleviate maybe the pain for Graham Harrell having to call this offense and Keaton Slovis as well? When it's up to you to really use your arm and rely on the passing game, having a functioning run game, how much could that put pressure off him, especially against a tough Cal secondary?
Yeah, I think this is definitely going to be a game. If you can get a couple of those running backs back, it's going to be huge for the USC offense. It's changed, when you've only seen Akeem Christian in there. Now, he got 20 carries on the road against Arizona State, so they started using him a lot more. But before that, you just weren't seeing it. Having Keaton Slovis throw 57 times in a game. I mean, that's kind of crazy. So I don't think you're going to see that as much. I think it should certainly help if at least one of those running backs comes back, because this is a real Cal defense. I know the secondary maybe hasn't performed to the levels we saw last year, and they had everybody coming back and All-American honors and things like that. But still, this is a defense that can get you. Tim DeRuyter does a really good job. Justin Wilcox knows what he's doing. They would love nothing more than to get a second win in a row against USC, especially because Justin Wilcox used to work at USC and was fired by the head coach.
Which was ironic, given that Clay Helton this week said, anytime you go up against the Justin Wilcox team, you know that the defense is going to be coached extremely well. And everyone in my mentions was like, well.
I mean, if you're Justin Wilcox and you were fired by Clay Helton, and I'm not saying I think Clay Helton was justified in the fire.
Yeah,
Wilcox has done a great job most every place he's been except USC for whatever reason. And maybe that's not a lot of his fault. But if he could get, he could deliver a death blow or something, I guess you could say, to Clay Helton's USC coaching career if he gets a win again, 2 wins in a row. I mean, I don't.
That's some pretty good motivations.
I would think for both sides,
because it's not just Justin Wilcox. You got Marcus Tuiasosopo on that. You got Torrey Beckton, who is a former, is their head strength coach there. There's several names. There's guys that USC tried to go get this offseason.
True.
That said, I think I'm going to stay here.
Yeah.
And so there's several ties to coaching staff, support staff at USC that Cal group definitely would like to win, particularly against USC. It just seems like everybody has something against USC a little bit.
There's some rivalries there. I mean, the Oregon USC staff, there's major rivalries and stuff, but I think there's some good ones from Cal too. Just there's so many crossovers between the two staffs.
Interestingly enough, there's not as many of that type of thing, just personal relationship-wise with USC UCLA.
No,
because Chip
anything.
Kelly was just kind of an outside guy.
Yes.
I mean, he didn't know his time at Oregon previously. It didn't kind of overlap as much with any of the current people at USC, so just wasn't quite the same there.
No, and I don't even think there's really a lot of recruiting crossover. There's just not where Oregon and USC are going after the same guys. Cal, USC went after Cal's defensive back coach, in the offseason. I mean, there's a lot. Yeah, you're right. There's a lot more ties between Cal and Oregon than there is with UCLA right across town.
Yeah.
You know what's an interesting tie? It's just a complete oddball.
I like that
thing here, but John Baxter actually has a tie to Chip Kelly because they were both in I believe the same conference when they both started coaching way early in their career. John Baxter was at Maine, and Chip Kelly was his first or second year at New Hampshire.
New Hampshire, yeah.
And so they played against each other. Now, John Baxter wasn't at Maine for very long, and Chip Kelly obviously stayed there for a long time. But he said, when I was talking to him previously this year, he said, "Yeah, I know Chip from way back in the day, from when I was at Maine." I was like, "The Black Bears?" Yeah, when he was in New Hampshire. I was like, "Okay."
Wow.
Lofa Tatupu played at Maine first before he came to USC. So
really, I did not know that one.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Ryan, you do the podcast of champions, so
I
you
do.
have a better sense of the Pac-12, if you will. What do you make of this Cal team? I know it's been up and down. You lose Chase Garbers, so when you lose your starting quarterback, things happen to your offense. But this was a Cal offense that didn't really score that much to begin with Chase in there. But then they have their defense. They have a good secondary. What do you make of this team?
Yeah, last year it was sort of a joke. The Cal offense was kind of there, and they were playing with different quarterbacks. And Chase Garbers looked better, but they kept playing other guys, and they were turning the ball over. And you're like, what are you doing? And then, they come out of the gate 4-0. They beat an Ole Miss squad on the road. That's a huge win for them. That was maybe the Pac-12's best win as far as the outer conference goes. I mean, I don't know what, name a better one, like the Michigan State win or something. But that's beating, an SEC team. I think that's pretty good for Cal. Chase Garbers goes 4-0, and when he gets hurt, their offense goes, they look awful. Like they just look absolutely terrible. I joked on the podcast of Champions that Chase Garbers is the greatest quarterback in the history of the universe because Cal's here when he's in and they're down here. So it's all him. He's out for a while. They have a 4-game losing streak. They go, they were 4-0. Then they get a 4-game losing streak. They scored 41 points total in 4 games. Then they get a bye week. Now they had a bye week in the middle of that 4-game stretch, and that didn't really help. They get a bye week. They play Washington State, who they were 1-4 in conference, but man, they just look feisty, and it seemed like it still looked like a pretty good team. And Cal puts up 33 points. They score 5 offensive touchdowns. For Cal, that's like a good month. There's not one game. More than USC scored. More offensive touchdowns than USC scored. These weren't usually Cal get like a defensive one or a special teams one. 5 offensive touchdowns against Washington State. And it was Devin Monster, the former UCLA quarterback. It wasn't even Chase Garbers. Now Chase Garbers is healthy. They're going to have a competition this week or whatever. He's cleared to play.
Sure, yeah.
So, this is Cal, it's like stock down, stock down, stock down. Way stock up, and you get they got some health in the wide receiver core and offensive line, but also getting Garbers back, who I called the MVP of the league. It looks like this is a Cal team. We've seen a lot of Pac-12 teams kind of surge and plummet.
Right before.
They're surging right now, so it's not really the best time to be catching Cal. You would have loved to play them like a few weeks ago.
But here's the thing. What can you really make of that? Because I feel like Washington State's defense is not the greatest, right? They gave up like 67 points to UCLA.
Good point.
Yeah, I mean, it's true, but that was it depends on week to week. Sometimes you just have to ignore what happened last week. That could be an aberration for Cal, and they never do that again all year.
Yeah.
But I feel like if Garbers is back or, Monster's playing better. I mean, Monster was making throws down the field like an actual quarterback. Because if you watched any of his games, and I feel bad.
Like an actual.
No, I mean, he was if you watched the games before, you're like, what is that guy doing back there? He can't throw the football. He was making great throws. He looked, I don't know if it was just, it took him a while to get into the system. Justin Wilcox did say during the bye week they had some things planned for the quarterback position. Whatever they did, I mean, they were throwing the ball down the field effectively. He was accurate. They moved the ball. They're running the ball. Christian Brown Jr.'s, kind of their featured back. It looked like a real offense, which if you've watched any Cal football, it was not that.
The shade that you're throwing at Cal.
10 points a game for a 4-game stretch is not good especially in the Pac-12. So, I think you're going to get a real team. Plus, we know Cal's defense is good. The secondary, 21 interceptions last year. They only have 4 so far. So that's, it's a pretty step, but they had 6 guys coming back from that group. It's a really talented group. It could same sort of thing where USC went on the road to Colorado and they were sort of asleep and they woke up and they kind of looked a lot better than they did. This Cal secondary could get a couple picks. The offense could play well again for the second week at home. So we just don't know. It's a Pac-12. It's a mixed bag, but there's the potential there for an upset from Cal.
Yeah, the thing that we've seen Keaton Slovis struggle with this season is just making the right reads, disguising coverages. That's something that he struggled with. This seems like this could be a poor matchup for him, just given what we've seen from this Cal secondary, right?
They do like to drop 8 guys in the. I mean, that's something they actually do. Drop eight guys in the coverage.
Not just a USC BYU response.
And I think they're pretty good at disguising things. And that's the knock on Slovis is that that linebacker that you didn't know that he was in coverage, you thought he might be rushing or whatever, and you don't see him. We've seen that happen a few times. I'm not saying it happens all the time, but I think if he misses a couple or doesn't see a guy, Cal's capable of putting people in the right position to make a pick. So that's just something you're going to have to watch for.
And that's kind of what Graham Harrell and Clay Helton said about this defense or Graham Harrell specifically, is that they're just always where they're supposed to be. They do their job. It's not that they have guys like Evan Weaver who makes like every tackle.
Yeah.
Who tackles.
He leads the nation in tackles at over 15 a game.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Has some games like over 20, and it's their defense is set up for that. Not every defense is set up for linebackers to make every tackle. Theirs is. Their defensive linemen just basically try to take up as many offensive linemen, try to take up as many blockers as possible so that the linebackers get free run. That was the same thing at USC. Under Wilcox, similar stuff there, the 2-gap system. But they have player makers like Ashton Davis in the back, who was he a walk-on? He was lightly recruited?
Yeah, something like that.
His gains have been astronomical in the back of that secondary there, and he's a guy that's a ball hawk. He goes and finds the ball. He picked up Herbert earlier this year on a nice play, cutting underneath the route. He's a guy that you got to watch out for. I kind of asked Keaton Slovis, I was like, is there any guy that you kind of identify, pre-snap that you got to go get. And he said, no, not exactly. That's not exactly how they kind of, pick out things as an offense. The offensive line may be looking for certain guys, but not necessarily he's not necessarily looking for one specific guy when he goes up to the line. But, they have to run the ball. If you run the ball, it makes it that much more difficult to drop 8. Now, I think that's played into the offense kind of stalling out so much later in drives is because the things they're doing to help the run game, the screen passes, just the wide stuff, the new stuff they're trying to put in each week. I think that teams are able to adjust to that, and because USC just hasn't consistently been able to run the ball between the tackles after the first quarter, I think that's part of the reason why you've seen them. It's like everybody's yelling, why are they not making adjustments? I think that it's just teams are being able to adjust to some of the new stuff they're putting in each week because they haven't been able to run the ball up the middle. And I know a lot of people are talking about the offensive line in the comments as well, and they haven't been great, but it's just that much more difficult when your play calls are designed to put your guys in the best position. Early in the season, do you remember some of the comments we were getting about Marquise Stepp? It's like, Marquise Stepp, why are they running a sweep with him? Yeah. Well, you have to run those things. You can't just run one specific play with one person. Like, you can't just run Stephen Carr's on sweeps and then Marquise Stepp straight down the middle. You have to be able to run the full gamut to keep defenses honest, or else they're just overplay each play. And I think that the fact that Keenan Kristen, and he's done a really nice job. His game has grown a huge amount the last 3 weeks, but I think that he's been kind of limited in being able to run up the middle. So because of that, I think the defense have been able to adjust, and then that's why some of these drives are stalling out because USC's not been able to get the big play in the last couple weeks. And so as they're driving, and then they make one mistake, you get a false start or something. Now you have a 4th and 8 or something. I mean, a 3rd and 8 or something. You pick up 5 yards and you're at 4th and 3,
right?
Because of that false start.
Yeah.
Because those type of things happen when you're not able to run the ball up the middle consistently and be able to pick up 3, 4, 5 yards on first down, which is something that we haven't necessarily seen. So if they get Stephen Carr back and maybe even Via Malapai, if you get those two guys back, I think that changes what you can do. And Graham Harrell even said so as far as play calling. I kind of asked him, can you change if you get those two guys back? Does that enable you to do some different things? And Keely, what was his first reaction?
He was like, well, I'd like to get those two back. He was kind of joking around like, it would be nice to get them back. Yes, please.
Yeah, so getting those two guys back, and I think that opens up things he can do as far as running up the middle to an extent, but also now you don't have to have Amon-Ra St. Brown back there. Now you don't have to go 5 wide. You can do it if you want to, but it's not a necessity. I think that some of those things they were completely out of necessity in the last couple weeks.
Yeah.
Putting Amon-Ra back there or just going 5 wide because, hey, this is what's best for us because we don't have any depth, and Keenan Kristen's not a guy that's going to carry the ball 30 times. He just can't do it with the size he is, and they don't want to put that many hits on him. And Graham Harrell even used that terminology. He was like, there's a certain amount of hits we want him to take.
Yeah.
You don't want him taking a ton of hits at his size. So
yeah,
I think that those are something to watch for is if the play calling changes and if you can run the ball up the middle, that forces those backers to stay in. You can do play action. USC has basically no success on play action in the last couple weeks. So
yeah.
It'll be interesting to see for sure. Let's actually go to some callers because we have a full call queue.
We love the callers.
We do. So let's go to our first one. Hello, you are live on television.
Hey guys, it's Zach in LA. I forgot to give my name last week, so apologies. Sorry, Keely.
No worries.
So my question is, if it was the end of 2018. And I want you to rewind. At the end of 2018, you find out Clay's coming back. You're hired as his personal football guru.
Ooh.
What 3 things do you tell him to change? And these are the 3 things that you think give him the best chance to stay in 2019. I'd like to hear from all of you. Also, really quick second part. When Mike Bone comes on, is there someone who gives him context as to what USC football is all about, the history of USC football, not just the past 10 years, but the past, 100 years of football? Because I think context is really important when you're coming into a job, and I'm curious as to who he gets that from if we're cleaning house in Heritage Hall. So That's a two-part question. Sorry about it, but thanks, guys. Fight on, and hi, Urban Meyer.
All right.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Zach.
Zach. Thank you for leaving your name.
The Hire Meyer hashtag there. Real quick on Bone. I mean, I got to talk to him for a while. He met a lot of the members of the media.
Wait, where did you talk to him?
I was courtside at the game. He invited
Which
me.
game?
What game?
The basketball game.
Basketball
Oh,
game.
okay.
Ryan attending
I
basketball.
did
Wow.
too. I've been last two.
Do you guys see the pigs? They're flying. They're
Yeah.
flying.
That's probably my last one. No, I'll go tomorrow. I'm just kidding. But I mean, he's really asking a lot of questions. He talked about learning, listening, learning, and then leading, and he's really trying to listen and learn now. So I think there's a lot of people in Heritage Hall that have a lot of the sense of that history at USC. I mean, the trophies are everywhere, all that stuff. So I feel like that's something that he's going to get. He's going to get that. I don't know if it's any one person specifically, but I feel like that's not something you're going to have to worry about as far as him getting the context of the USC football program and the entire athletic department.
Yeah.
And he sounds like a guy that is really invested in trying to learn.
Yeah.
Like you said, he's been asking a bunch of questions of people, but I'm sure he did his own research and stuff.
Yeah.
It's not like it's there's some book of secrets they can't get to. And with some of the past athletic directors, maybe it seemed like it was, even though they were here, like it felt like they didn't really research anything about any of the other programs.
I can almost guarantee you that not.
Yeah. But it seems like Bone is he is taking this like an athletic director or anyone that goes in for a job interview. What do? You research the company. I think Bone, really did that with USC, just from the things we've kind of heard from him and who he's talking to and different things. So I think he's doing things the right way in that regard. We'll see how it affects his leadership style as he continues to progress.
Yeah.
Now, 3 things you would have changed
Football
for Clay Helton.
guru. Put your football guru hat on.
So we're like the football. So it depends how big the change. I mean, is like getting a new offensive coordinator one thing, or can you include like getting a new staff? Like, is that one thing?
I want to say that if you're going to use a Notre Dame model, then actually implement a Notre Dame model. If that's going to be your example over and over and over and again, then don't half-ass it. That's something that you could say about probably a lot of things in this program. It's like, if you're going to say stuff, don't half-ass it.
Yeah.
So that'd be one for me. I would say also you got to tackle more. You got to tackle better. You gotta put the drills into motion instead of 50%, 70% speed. You don't have to tackle to the ground all the time, but you need to be going full speed. That's the biggest thing. They don't tackle well, and that's it's not that you have to do an Oklahoma drill. You don't have to start and finish every day with Oklahoma drill. You don't have to go 11 on 11 all the time. But even in drills, it just seems like now there's teaching elements that you do during camp, and you work your way up to it. But when we see them in practice, they're going 70% or something like that. So it needs to be 100% so that you can get those angles down.
Yep.
And so that when a guy actually makes a move, you make the move with him instead of being like, I didn't see that in practice. How am I supposed to defend that?
Yeah.
So that'd be the 2 biggest things are those 2.
He said 3, Shotton.
I know.
Those are the
mean,
2 biggest.
We're all going to contribute. I mean, I think
Sure,
practicing what you preach is part, like what Shotgun said. If you're going to use the Notre Dame model, I mean, changing the staff, he made some changes. So I think he did a lot of the things that you needed to do, but he half-assed them. He didn't do them the whole way. Like, you needed Graham Harrell to come in. Like, that's fine. You needed an Aaron Osmus or somebody like that to come in. Now, it was questionable because Aaron Osmus wasn't working in college. We've talked to him. I like him. It seems like he's doing a good job. We're no experts as far as strength and conditioning goes, but you needed to change that up. But you needed to make more changes, not moving guys that are on staff, like getting rid of more people and bringing in bigger names from the outside. And I think they tried to do that for some positions and it wasn't working, but you needed to do a better job of that. The tackling in practice, the full pads thing, just being more physical in practice. And when you talk about fixing discipline, fixing turnovers, you have to have some sort of consequences there. If you get a unsportsmanlike conduct, you're out of the game. Elijah Griffin got one in the last game, didn't come out, and
He was out 2 plays later.
Okay, but still.
But it's one of those things where you're off the field. Now he did it a couple games ago, and he was off the field right away. But I want to see more of that. I want to see like you're out for the rest of the quarter or whatever it is, and if it hurts the team, it hurts the team. But just showing that, I think saying what you're going to do and then not really following up is not the right formula. I think you need to have these kids and keep them on their toes, change practice up. If something's not working in a game, change the way you practice that week. Don't go with the plan you made in July for mid-November when things aren't going right. You got to change things, week to week, depending on what's going on.
Yeah, and I agree with all of you guys. In my mind, I feel like the better question, no shade to Zach, would have been after the 2017 season. Because in my mind, that would have been new offensive coordinator, new offensive line coach. Those were more critical in my mind than 2018.
Yeah, that's a great point.
I don't think he would have had a 5-7 season if you did that.
You were standing pat, going on your record, and that's why it's kind of, that's why a lot of the USC fans were, not say, oh, he won the Rose Bowl, he won the Pac-12. It's like, yeah, but you saw them get pumped by Notre Dame and Ohio State. You knew there were problems.
There were deficiencies,
and you didn't make any changes at that point, and you needed to. And you beat the crappy teams on your schedule, but then the next year, you didn't play well against the good teams, and you lost to some of the crappy teams on your schedule. So that was the problem.
It's a little bit of just having foresight, and not just in that situation, but in situations like mentioned this on the Family Feud podcast. But Keaton Slovis said this week, that during practice, he's like, I felt in the first quarter that we were getting a little bit lackadaisical on the sidelines. Okay, well, someone needs to have the foresight to feel that, whether it be the senior leaders on the team or the coaching staff. To go around and say, hey, cut it out. We got to keep our foot on the pedal and keep going. And so foresight in a game, foresight in weeks in advance to say, Christian Rector just doesn't look right out there. Let's shut him down. Let's give him a bye week. Let's give him a non-conference game off against Notre Dame. Have him ready for conference games.
Yeah,
those type of things. Just foresight in advance of little, medium, and big things. It just doesn't seem like it has been there with this staff.
Mm-hmm.
Real quick for Zach, change at the center spot too.
Wow, yeah. If we want to go 2017. No, but yeah. Oh, yeah. I forgot that was 2018. Yep, agreed. Alrighty, thanks, Zach, for the call. Let's go to our next caller in the queue. Hello, you're live on Tunnel Vision.
Hi, this is Dr. K from Salt Lake City. I called once before, about 6 months ago. My son graduated in 2014, and if you remember in 2013 when USC beat Stanford at home, he was one of the 20,000 people that rushed the field. I just want to say that, you need to embrace those moments, as we all do. And it was just fantastic, and hopefully we can get back to many more victories like that. But the reason I called was that in today's Salt Lake Tribune, they had Utah's 50 biggest wins. And this all obviously comes into about Urban Meyer when he was here. And when he got here, and I'll get to the question, but when he came here in 2003, and he was 2004, so he's 10-2 in 2003, and then they were undefeated in 2004, went to the Fiesta Bowl and blew out Pittsburgh 35-7. Kyle Whittingham was the defensive coach, and he kept him on. And obviously keeping him on 2 years later, and then Kyle's been on and has taken the team to the Pac in the Pac-12. I think he's at 500 right now. Keely kind of touched base on this a little bit, but my question would be, is there, and I know you talked about it a little bit, who would you keep? Let's say he came on, any other coach, but looking Urban's history, the people when he comes in, and I know Ryan and many of you have said, let's just clean house completely. They didn't hear, and luckily they kept Kyle on because the biggest win they ever had was when they beat Alabama in 2009, 31-17 in the Sugar Bowl. So who would you actually keep? If you would, can you literally clean house when you come in as a new coach? Thanks for taking my call. I'll go ahead and get off and listen.
Thanks, Dr. K.
Thank you.
He's our verbose doctor. I like that. He gives us a lot of background there. So to me, so what you do, Dr. K, say you're at your hospital or wherever you work, and you bring in a new medical director who's going to, or whatever, director of the hospital. I don't know what they call that stuff. The guy's running the show in the hospital. Maybe the hospital hasn't been working all that well. I think you hire an alpha, an A. You get someone that everybody wanted, like an Urban Meyer. You bring in someone like that. You let him do whatever he wants. Like when people ask me, like, who would you keep on staff? I'm like, well, nobody, but it's just unless Urban Meyer identifies someone. If he identified Kyle Whittingham as someone who's a really good coach, he obviously was very good at that. Urban's very good at his job. My guess is he would look at the staff and probably wouldn't keep anybody because the way the staff was assembled. Now, there's some good coaches there, but just the way it was assembled, there's not like head coach material to me that are on staff. I think Greg Burns is doing a good job. He's been around a long time. If he would have had a head coaching opportunity, I think it would have come already. You have people like that. I think Chad Kay is doing a good job. There's guys that are doing a good job. Graham Harrell might be down the road someday, and maybe he would look at Graham Harrell and say that's someone that I'd want. But he's not. Urban Meyer hasn't really been an air raid guy. But I would not look at. I would never put a restriction on him. Like, hey, you know what? We would like you to come in and coach this team.
I don't think he's asking for a restriction.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people, they come in. They're like, I want him to keep this guy. I'm like, no, you don't hire an alpha and say, but you have to do this. You say, do what you want.
That's in any hire. Like you don't. When people come in for a job, it's not best to say, okay, now that you're here, these are the way we do things. This is what you have to do.
That's what USC's been doing. That's always USC's done.
Of course. Yeah. That's why USC's in the position it's in.
Yeah.
And the athletic department as a whole.
I wouldn't even think about the fact of here's what we'd want.
But
let him do whatever he wants.
The question wasn't that. The question was, if he comes in, he wants to keep somebody, who on the staff would you keep? I think that's the way I interpreted this question.
So that's how I did it.
But it all depends on who does he want. If he has a bunch of guys,
if you were him,
in,
that's his point. If you were Urban Meyer, who would you on the staff keep?
I'd keep nobody. I think it's time to clean house.
That was so complicated.
Yeah.
I think so. I'm just going to do it in a general way. But when you go in and you're identifying, it's often good to have someone that already has ties because of all the connections with recruiting and stuff. Unless if you're coming from a crosstown rival or something, that makes it a lot easier, whether it's in conference or not. But if you're going from Xavier to Cincinnati, because I'm wearing a Cincinnati hat today.
Topical.
That's in the same. That's in the same city, so you can about the other program, and maybe you're recruiting some of the same people. That makes it a lot easier. Whereas if you're coming from a complete outsider, like if you bring somebody from the Northeast to the West Coast, and you don't have any ties to the West Coast, or Sonny Dykes, going from Louisiana Tech to Cal, it's good to keep somebody around that knows the local area, knows all the local coaches. So I think it depends on who you bring in, who comes in and to a situation, and whether or not they have already have their own connections, or if they need to keep some connections. And then I think that's a big part of it. And then you're just evaluating as well. When Sark was hired, he didn't coach the bowl game. He was evaluating everybody that was on staff, though. I mean, even though he knew some of the guys, obviously. But you come in, you evaluate. Let me see how these guys work. Do I like that? Do I like what they're doing? Are they teaching? Is their teaching style good? Is what they're teaching good? Those type of things. And then you go from there. Now, you may already have somebody in mind for whatever position, and then you decide whether or not that candidate is better than the one you want to get, and where the money stands. Money always plays a part.
I think keep the support staff. I mean, I think that's a good transition group, because they're going to have Urban Meyer would have a much bigger support staff. Just keep all the dudes that are already there. I mean, the Gavin Morses of the world, they do a great job. They do a lot with a little. Keep all them, and I think that's a good transition. My guess would be you're not going to keep any of the assistant coaches, but who knows?
Unless Herm Edwards comes in.
We're breaking our rule, gentlemen.
He kept all the
What's
coordinators.
The rule? The tunnel vision rule. Shotgun?
I said that's why I said in a general view.
Yes,
when you have a hiring,
you were walking the tightrope.
Dude,
I know what Ryan's about to say. I'm going to go to our next caller.
Yeah, let's do it.
Hello, you're live on Tunnel Vision.
Yeah, hey, thanks, guys. This is Frank in Las Vegas. I do want to preface my call by saying the great job you three do, and Dan and your whole team,
Thanks.
of keeping
Thank
us
you.
that do not live in Southern California in on what's happening with SC football. But here's my question. So we're, quote unquote, word on the street. Dr. Carol Folt has already told Mike Bone no to Urban Meyer. She doesn't like his past. I mean, he does have a checkered past. No to him. What have you guys heard? Is that true?
So she was asked in her kind of breakout scrum in the end of Mike Bones' presser. Have you put any limitations on Mike Bones' coaching hires? And she just flat out said no and didn't say anything else.
Yeah.
So,
and Mike Bones said he wasn't going to have an autonomous, it's not going to be all him. It's going to be, working with the president, working with the board of trustees. Are there people that would lean on the Urban Meyer side on the positive and the negative? I think in that group, and I would, from what we've heard, Carol Folt, the president, would lean more to the negative side. I don't think there was any absolutes that this cannot happen. I think there's certainly concerns that even if USC does make an offer to a guy like Urban Meyer, to Urban Meyer, would he be able to, with his health concerns, leave the cushy television gig that he's really good at? So I think there's a lot of factors at play where you have to have the interest on the USC side, you have to have the interest on the Urban Meyer side, but I don't think there was a absolute roadblock no coming from the president, from what we've been told.
there you go.
Thanks for the call.
Thank you for the call. Let's jump into questions. Crazy to believe that it's 7:42 already. So semi-rapid fire, if you will.
Yeah, we're going to have to rapid fire this.
First off, on Facebook, Alan, our buddy Alan, said, was Keely even born when the Peristyle was created?
It's about the same time?
Is it 96, Ryan?
96?
95. So, yes.
So, yeah, she was alive. She
a
was
little baby. A little baby.
She was an original member.
True. That's so true. Trojan says, what about if Helton wins out, Utah loses one game, and we beat Oregon in the Pac-12 championship game?
I mean, that's the big question of what, if you're a USC person that wants a change no matter what, that's your worst case scenario. My guess is it doesn't matter at this point. I think the administration, is going to go in another direction, but it's USC. We've seen weirder things happen, but that's the one scenario I could see a potential to come back.
You just have to remember there's new bosses. And anytime you have a new boss, you got to impress them. So that's why the coaching staff is trying to, do everything they can to impress their new bosses, whether it's the athletic director or the new president. So I think that plays into it. They're going to have looked at the past and seen what has happened previously as well. But what you do in front of them, often plays a big role.
Mm-hmm.
Just real quick, and I was shocked by this line. Utah's favored by 21.5 points against UCLA.
Wow.
3 touchdown favorite. So we're talking like this isn't a very likely scenario happening.
I feel weird about it, though. Can I put that on the record? I feel like there's going to be some weirdness in the game.
I think there could be. I mean, I'm picking UCLA to cover that. I mean, that just seems like a lot of points to cover. But it's not going to be easy to go into Salt Lake City, team coming off a bye. It's crazy. Woo. And USC's got to beat UCLA at the end of the season, too. And, of course, the Cal game. So that scenario is possible. And it's possible to go and beat Oregon in the championship game, but that seems like a pretty much a long shot right now, but we'll see.
We shall see. In that regard, Raymond on Facebook says, question, should we be scared of UCLA? And if the Trojans lose that game, can you have an emergency tunnel vision? Just saying, ...
I don't know if you want to be scared of any game, but if you're worried about USC being able to lose that game, certainly that's UCLA, their preseason's over. They're playing a lot better right now. Their defense went from crap to pretty good. You saw Joshua Kelly run over USC last year. He's playing at a high level. DTR is playing a much higher level. So they're a real team right now. That's why people are thinking if they could go on the road and beat Utah, they certainly could beat USC in the Coliseum. So I think it's a real potential threat.
Alexis says, with Brew McCoy, Kyle Ford.
Real quick, emergency tunnel vision. Is that considered an emergency? I don't know.
Did we do an emergency tunnel vision when they lost to UCLA last year?
We might have, but it's going to be Sunday. I mean, we're going to do it Sunday night anyway, so.
We might do an emergency tunnel vision that Monday? Not sure.
Yeah, very good point, Keely.
We'll see.
There could be an emergency tunnel vision Monday for some reason.
Yeah, but after a loss, you're more like, we might give a live update or something, but it's at this season, it's not
we
like
have tunnel visions on Sunday anyway.
Yeah, it's like
I'm saying right after the game, but this season and the way they played, it's like it's not like it's a huge surprise if they were to lose a game. If they lose a game, you're just like, I can't believe they lost. They could do better than this, but it's not like USC going to Oregon State and losing.
Yeah,
those type games, you're just like, what just happened?
Yeah, last year was 2-8 UCLA squad, so that was a pretty big surprise. This year, I don't think it would be that big of a surprise. The Pac-12, outside of Oregon And Utah is a muddled mess between number 3 and number 12. So I don't think anything would shock you at this point.
The bar has moved down is basically what I'm saying
Yeah.
for emergency tunnel vision. Or
Yeah.
We could do a podcast, just like a regular podcast, probably not a live dealy or something, but we might have to do
Live
something
dealy.
especially if it's an early game. We won't know game time until this weekend. So
True. Alexis on YouTube says, with Brew McCoy, Kyle Ford, Meyer McLean, and incoming recruits, how will our wide receiver core look like next year?
it's going to be different, obviously, with Michael Pittman gone and Tyler Vaughn's
Potentially.
could leave. He has done play. This is his 4th season, so he still has a year of eligibility. So he has a decision to make, depending on where he's at academically with masters and all that type of stuff as well. So it could look just different without Pittman. But you get Meyer McLean back. You'll have a full strength Kyle Ford, full strength Brew McCoy should be back. So, it doesn't seem like there's going to be a huge drop off. You lose Pittman and Vaughn's. Obviously, you need some guys to step up. But Drake London's a guy that can easily slide out to the outside, or you can keep him where he's at with those 2 big guys as well. If Kyle Ford and Brew McCoy, play up to the potential they have, they weren't 5 stars for no reason.
Yeah.
They're really, really good when healthy. So, I think that the cupboard is not bare next season. Now, as far as recruiting-wise, you get Josh Jackson is the one that's committed right now. He's more of a slot guy, I would say. We'll see where they kind of line him up. I think that he's similar style-wise, not as good, but style-wise to Amon-Ra St. Brown. You can move him outside if you want to, but I think he's best at this level playing in the slot.
I think we're having some connection issues on Facebook a little bit. Working on it behind the scenes, but just thank you for being patient with us.
Sorry about that.
We have a Facebook question from John who says, what was the feel on Mike Bohn's first visit during practice? It was interesting. He right away was very comfortable with the players. When he was walking in, we were also walking in, and that's when Marquise Stepp and Brett Nealon were walking out because they were doing rehab, and he was really comfortable with them. And I felt like the players were comfortable too. He walked in and came in and shook everyone's hand, asked for their name. We talked to him a little bit. Definitely a change of pace for us in the media. We didn't really have that interaction with previous athletic directors. And then he went over to kind of Rehab Island and talked to Liam Jimmons for a while, got the lay of the land from him, took a picture with him. And then Clay Helton came over very briefly, and they didn't really interact. It was interesting. Now, granted, they could have interacted later on in practice, and we weren't there. Not sure about that. But as far as what we could see, it was a very brief interaction. But that was kind of the feel of it. But he seems very wanting to be invested, wanting to be involved. And so I think it was a good sign so far.
Yeah, I mean, it was good. And just real briefly, when we kind of joked about the courtside stuff. I mean, all I did was I wasn't at practice early. I didn't get to see Mike Bohn. I was going to the basketball game afterwards. I was down on the court, courtside or whatever. And then when he comes in with Steve Lopes, and so I went over and tapped him on the shoulder and introduced myself. And he said, "Come sit down." And I was like, "Okay." So I'm sitting down between him and Steve Lopes, the CFO, COO of the athletic department, and he was just chatting away, asking questions and stuff. And after a few minutes, I was like, "Hey, I don't want to keep you. I'll go back up to my seat." He's like, "No, stay." So he was very personable. He went around in the second half, like he sat with me most of the first half, and we all talked. And then second half, he went to the other side, was talking to different boosters. He addressed the Founders Club before the basketball game. A lot of the boosters that kind of go in there and have dinner and stuff before going into the Galen Center. So he's very approachable. He's meeting everyone. He's, like he said, he's listening, he's learning. And then, so he's trying to help himself get as much information as possible before he can lead this athletic department.
Mm-hmm. We have a Facebook question from John who says, how much responsibility should the coaching staff shoulder for all the injuries this year? I feel like the O-line/Drevno is the reason that JT Daniels is out for the year, and also injuries to Slovis and Fink last year at Utah. Thanks.
I mean, quarterbacks get hit.
Yeah.
It's part of it. You can't blame the offensive line just for them being injured. I mean, you look at some of the NFL quarterbacks and their sack rates will be astronomical, and those guys are bigger and faster and stronger. They're hitting them, and they might not get hurt. Sometimes it's just luck of the draw with something like that. They've given up those sacks, but they've been pretty good as far as protecting the quarterback. They haven't been great or anything, but they've been pretty good. So I don't think you can just say, "Oh, well, the offensive line's to blame for all those injuries."
Yeah,
it was unfortunate, but JT Daniels was because he was trying to twist away at the same time the guy was hitting him. I mean, Keaton Slovis is because the back of his head hit the ground. It was
Yeah.
a play he threw. He completed a pass. So I can't blame the coaching staff for that. Now, is there a systemic issue? They had 20 players, scholarship players, not dressed for the ASU game. They lost 3 or 4 more during the game. So you got 24, 25 players out, and your roster is 85 scholarship players. That's a whole heck of a lot.
Yeah.
And it's not like it's the first time.
No, it happened last year too.
Yeah, last year they had practices where there were 25 guys out. So I don't know who you want to blame it on. It's an issue though. It's definitely an issue.
Yeah.
People want to blame the coaching staff for everything. It's hard to say, but like you said,
Some people want to blame the strength and conditioning coaches. Some people want to blame the athletic trainers. I don't know who the blame lies on, but it is definitely an issue.
There's an issue, yeah. But like you said, it's hard to say. You can't say, oh, it's this person or this group or anything like that.
Yeah. Still going into rapid fire here. Truck Ranger and a lot of other people have said, how long before we know about the direction of the football program?
I think it won't be long after the UCLA game. You're going to have. I think they know that people are expecting some kind of news. It depends how the games go. Maybe it'll be more urgent if it's a loss to UCLA. I think you'll see something more of a. I think there'll be more of an urgency from the athletic department to say something at that point.
I mean, even last year after the UCLA game or after the Notre Dame game, there was an announcement by Lynn Swann.
Yeah.
Yes, we're sticking with Clay Helton, so you'll know the direction.
Yeah.
After the last game.
There was a half announcement after the Oregon State game or before the Oregon State game. That's when
Good point.
Neil Callaway was let go.
Right. But the fans flew the banner over the Coliseum. I mean, it was to a boiling point. So I think the athletic department knew it's going to be to a boiling point again, most likely. We're already seeing it. I mean, there's just so much fan apathy. So I think there's no choice but the athletic department to make some sort of statement one way or the other. So I don't think it's going to be long after the UCLA game. That's just my guess. But it's USC. They've done weird stuff before. I'm sure they're going to do weird stuff again.
Yeah, for sure. On YouTube, Jasper Smith says, who's approaching the 4-game threshold as it relates to preserving their red shirt?
So you have Jude Wolfe at 4. He's going to travel this week to the game, but he's an emergency replacement because because Eric Cromanhook, who came out of last week, is supposed to be healthy, and as Josh Follow as well. They don't use the tight ends a ton. They haven't used much 2 tight end sets, though they did bring it back last game, which was the first time in 4 or 5 weeks that they had used it. A couple other guys are at 4. Tuasivi Nomura, who is going to sit out the rest of the season. Max Williams, who's out for the rest of the season. Keenan Kristen is going to continue playing.
Yeah.
Kyle Ford's at 3. Dejon Benton's at 3. Kalana McCowla is at 3 as well. So those are your guys that you kind of are deciding, do we want to play them? Because there's potential. There's at least 3 more games.
Yeah.
So if you want to play them 6 games, that's basically half a season. Then you go for it. Versus we hold them for a couple games. Do we really need Dejon Benton type thing?
Yeah.
If Marlon Tuipulotu is healthy, maybe you don't see him type. And then Adonis at OT is at 2, so he's the only guy that could potentially go over right now without a Pac-12 championship game. Interesting.
We have a question on Facebook from Anthony, and we've got this a lot. What's your guys' take on the Eure decommitment?
I think that's one of the most telling things that we've seen recently. He is a legacy of one of the best USC football players ever.
Top 5. Yeah.
Ever. So, and he was all about USC. I talked to him maybe a month ago, and one of the things he liked was because in his offense at Murrieta Valley, he moves around in different spots, fullback, tight end, does some different things. And that he kind of liked that they were using it, or at least he said he liked the H-back spot that they use and stuff. But I think he wants to see him throw the tight ends a little bit more, those type of things, and maybe they would to him because he's a better receiving option than maybe some of the guys they have.
Yeah, he's as surefire of a recruit as you get, just a stone cold lock. So a guy like that to decommit, it tells you the state of USC football recruiting. It's the worst I've ever seen. Number 76 or 77 in the country, according to 24/7 Sports.
Yeah,
with that decommitment. 11th in the Pac-12. We've never seen something like this in, midway through November. So that's just the way it is. You can tell, the recruits are saying it with their commitments of what they think of the direction of this program. So that's it's pretty clear, and I think the athletic department knows. I think Mike Bone knows those kind of things. It's very obvious right now.
Recruitment. But also, every time you mention this year's ranking, I have to point out last year they finished 20th, and that was the worst USC had ever had previously.
Right.
And
77th. So, yeah. 11th of the Pac-12. Before last year, USC never finished outside of the top 2 in the Pac-12, and it was mostly number 1 every year. There was a couple years number 2. So to be 11th in November, and you're talking about signing days 5 weeks away. So it's not like signing day is in February now. Like signing day is 5 weeks away. So for USC to be this bad, this late in the game, unprecedented, we've never seen it, as big of a reason as any to make a change on the coaching staff.
Yep. Jerry says, do you guys believe that Clancy Pendergast's aggressiveness with defense is more positive or negative? He keeps giving big plays up.
I like forcing negative plays. I mean, I don't know. It's like
What's interesting is when Justin Wilcox was at USC, it was because he's a bend but not break guy.
Yeah.
And it was, why are they never blitz?
Yeah. I like the forcing negative plays. So, I mean, there's definitely some issues there, but I'm probably more sympathetic to Clancy than most. I'm not saying that, he's the perfect choice for USC, but I kind of like, he takes something away from the defense. I mean, he did a really good job with Eno Benjamin. He'll take something away, but then you give up some big plays in other areas.
The thing that I'm curious about is with the tackling issue and like the angles and whatnot, does that come from higher above? Like, is this something where, I mean, I don't think they would tell us, but say Clancy is secretly like, I really want to go full speed and really tackle.
Yeah.
Would we see a better product on the field if that was the case? Would that help out Clancy's defense? I don't know.
I think that's for the potential there. And they've been put in a lot of bad spots too, with special teams plays. And when the offense just goes away for a while, I think sometimes it's hard to keep defensive players in it. Like if you have a consistent attack, that's one thing, but you get this offensive outburst that you've never even seen before in college football in the last 15 years, 28 points in the first quarter, and then you just go away for the next 3 quarters. I mean, that's kind of demoralizing for a defense too. So I think it's all part of it, but I like the more aggressive style and for USC, they have better athletes. I like when they're trying to force negative plays.
Yes, Shotgun?
Jasper said, Chantrell Henderson decommitting is one thing, but when Ron Yerie's son does it, wow.
Exactly. Very good, Jasper.
Yep. So Brandon on Facebook says, is there something I'm missing? Are we just assuming Urban is sitting back ready to go? Everyone is talking about getting past the Folt bone hurdle. Has there been any tumor or leak that a rumor or leak that he wrote
It's
tumor?
not a tumor.
What do we have that a year ago, tumor rumor or whatever? Anyway, that Urban Meyer's already in, or are we just assuming that a market-setting offer, 10-year, $100 million type of deal, will get the job done regardless?
No, you can't assume that. If you read my story about Urban Meyer, if you're on the USC side, what you have to do is put a offer that he cannot refuse in front of him. And he still may say no, but you have to give it your best effort. Like, here's what we're going to do. You're going to get paid this. Your staff is going to, you'll have this much for staff. We're going to expand this. You'll have this much power, blah, blah, blah. Here you go. Fix our football program. And then it's up to him is like, are the health concerns real enough where if he goes back to coaching in a really stressful situation, like it could be a danger, to his life. Like then you're not going to come back.
Jerry Kill style at Minnesota.
Yeah, I mean, he was going in and out of there. Yeah, he had to take time off. So I think it's not a done deal that Urban wants to come back to coaching. If he does want to come back, USC is a perfect spot because there's only so many schools you can win a championship. It's just more on the USC side that they've never done something like that before since 1925, going and get Howard Jones. Like literally the last time they got somebody with championship experience from outside the USC program. You do that, you make him an offer, but you don't know. And that's okay. If he says no and you did everything you could to try to get him, then you pat USC on the back like, this is amazing that you even tried to do that. And you'll get somebody else good. There's other great candidates, but you got to go after him and make him say no.
Also, since 1925 or when's the last time in any sport USC's gone and made a setting the platform type of offer to anyone?
No.
Not in any of my time.
Really been reluctant. Yeah, but reluctant to do that. So just going after Urban Meyer is a huge step. I think that's a win for the athletic department that they would be willing to try to hire the best guy on the market.
Mm-hmm. We have a question from Antrax who says, if they lose, is Helton getting quote-unquote tarmacked? I guess the question I will supersede or ask over it is, do you think that anything would happen in the regular season to get a firing happen prior to the end of the season?
I mean, there's really only one thing between now and the end of the season.
True,
it's
true,
the Cal
true.
game. So it's if you lose to
forget where we
Cal,
are.
I don't.
Into the regular season, at least.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. I wouldn't think so at this point. I mean, the outrage it'd be through the roof. Like Saturday night, well, it'll be Sunday morning when that happens.
That would be a tarmac situation too, just because what time they would get back.
They would land at
Lane
3 in the
Kiffin,
morning. Yeah. My guess is that it's so new for Mike Bone that it's just you just wait till the end of the season.
It just seems like that. Yep.
No, I don't think it would happen. But also, it's interesting that every away game, that's been a question.
Literally every away game.
Yeah.
No.
It has been one. I mean, I think it'll be.
Keyshawn Johnson tweeted out the definition of tarmac, didn't he?
Yeah.
So.
Which game was that? Was that the Notre Dame game? I think he did, or
I think so. It was early.
Yeah.
It was early.
But our guess is no. But hard to say. I mean, if
Hard
there's
to predict USC. Sorry.
enough big time boosters call Mike Bone and are like, "Hey, dude, just end this now, or we're done." And you're going to do it in a week anyway, then he might just do it.
Yeah.
But-
Well, buckle in. That's all I have to say.
Yeah.
He's still not going to tarmac him.
No, but no, I don't think that was the question. It was just to
Yes.
get rid of
It was the
Tarmac
question.
was
Oh,
It
okay.
was the question.
All right.
Shaka, we have multiple questions about you getting run over by Michael Pittman. Almost getting run over.
Michael Pittman had to adjust in the air, and he jumped up for the ball, so he lost the momentum there. I was talking with Taylor Mays earlier about this. If he would have been like racing down the sideline and the guy was coming over and he basically just diverts his energy into a different direction towards me, then I would have been a lot more concerned. But I could tell that Pittman was going to kind of slow his body down, so I just kind of turned away. It wasn't
Interesting.
Yeah, I saw that in the rewatch. It's the
just kind of reading the body language, reading the motions out there.
Yeah.
Like a good safety in the back.
Okay, sure. Calm down there, Shotgun. Our biggest fan on YouTube, QAnon, who's back at it after a second week of getting mad at us, says, who should come in and replace the poor-performing, inside Troy, Helton-bashing, urban-worshipping fools? So, thanks.
So wait, he wants us to be replaced, or
Yeah.
Oh.
He's been hating for a
He
while.
said, why would any quality player want to come to a school with the like of Inside Troy? I'm like, because they don't care about it. Players
Yeah.
don't look at us and go, you know what? What media member's there? Ooh, Shotgun's there. I'm going to that school.
They're picking the hats and they see Shotgun and they're like, ugh, no, different hat.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
you have to know we're not part of the team. We cover the team.
It's weird. Some people think that.
We're not part of. I went to USC.
I did
All
too.
of us went to
We all
USC.
went to
actually.
USC.
Yeah, all of us have taken classes at USC. But no, we don't work for USC. They do not pay us. They don't. I think they like us. Sometimes they don't like us what we say. But we're here to be honest and honest journalists that are going to give you the straight scoop about what's going on. We're going to tell you how it is. We're not going to paint a rosier picture than what's really going on out there. We want to be objective. That's our goal. And for us not to talk about a change in the coaching regime right now would be irresponsible. I mean, we don't have to come out and say he should be fired, but I mean, the writing's on the wall, and there's just no avoiding it at this point. So sorry if you feel that that's inappropriate, but that's the way it is right now. And the way the business of college athletics, it's not wait around for a couple of months and make it you have to make it happen now. Like I said, signing day is essentially in 5 weeks. You could lose an entire recruiting class if you know you're going to make a move. You got to just make it. Where before you could wait and let everyone's families kind of get now you can't. You just have to go for it and do it. And so that's why we think there's going to be some fireworks here in the next 2 weeks.
The person also said, have you heard of freshman injuries and post-sanctions? Bruh. Freshmen are there because other players that are older either have been pushed out of the program or have transferred or a number of reasons. That's why those freshmen are playing, partly. Your freshmen should be able to step in and play. That's what happens at the Alabamas, the LSUs, the Ohio States.
Yeah.
Injuries. You've got a consistent run of them. So you can't just blame injuries when it's an epidemic at your school. That's on you. Post-sanctions. What?
10 years ago.
They've been at 85 for a long time now. There's no reason why they shouldn't be able to compete at the highest level. It's not like they're anywhere close to 75 like they were, and they were still competing then. So even comparing then, Lane Kiffin was able to win with 75 at times.
He went 10-2 with 68 players
these
on
are
scholarship.
bad reasons.
Very bad reason if you're just making excuses. It sounds like you are, or you're like an Oregon fan and you just don't want USC to make a change, and that's we've seen that too. So you know who doesn't want? You know who wants Clay Helton to stay at USC?
11 other teams.
11, exactly. So that should tell you all. If you're on their side, then maybe you should question your own allegiance.
I believe that was our first Ryan rant. That was a shotgun rant. Well done.
I like it.
Interesting.
He followed up. What's going on?
Our buddy Alan says, question for our new basketball expert, Ryan Abraham. What is the ceiling for this talented basketball team? But I'm actually going to transfer that to Shotgun. Let's have a quick...
Let me give a little quick thing,
Sure. But let's have a quick basketball minute. Then we're going to go to our last callers in the queue and then wrap this puppy up.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, it looks like a really athletic team. I've seen weird stuff in the last couple of games where like there's high shooting percentage, and then there's like a lot of turnovers. And then the last game, they just couldn't shoot the ball very well. And they're letting teams that have like not quite as many athletes in games, but then at the end, they kind of excelled and end up blowing them out. So I think there's a pretty high ceiling for this team. I think it's a potential Sweet 16, Elite 8 kind of team as far as talent goes. We'll see if they put a whole, a run together in the Pac-12. But the guys are there, look legit, and you got enough like seniors that are going to help out. Two guys went over the 1,000-point mark in the game on Tuesday, so for their career, so pretty cool for that. But yeah, I think it's really a potential Sweet 16 kind of team.
Yeah, I think this team will be in the tournament. I don't think they'll be in the bubble. I think they'll be solidly in the tournament. I think the ceiling. Now we're talking ceiling. Is Final Four. That's everything going right. I think that they can be a Sweet 16 team, and some things go right. They get to the Elite 8, maybe to the Final Four. I think that would be an incredible run for this team. I don't think it's likely. Could pull back, guys. I don't think that's necessarily going to happen. But there's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of. I started to one of my three things was going to be slop fest in my 3-pointer because it's just. They're still not the cohesive bunch. They're still finding their way. Now, I think part of that is you have a ton of new guys. You have a lot of freshmen playing, they're trying to figure out where everybody's role is going to be. And it's easy to do that in scrimmages and stuff, and your inner squads, like everybody can play. But now when minutes are real, it changes a little bit. The coaches are trying to figure out the rotations. When do we use 3 bigs? When do we do this, that? And I think that's kind of a work in progress. I think you'll learn a lot from this team if you guys tape the game at 8 o'clock and rewatch it on Sunday. They're going to play Nevada and Nevada. I don't know which way you stand on it. But they're going to play Nevada. They have 3 really good guards that are veteran guys that are juniors or seniors, a couple of them transfer from other places because that was what Eric Musselman would do. But guess who's the coach there now?
Who's coaching there?
Steve Alford, former UCLA coach. So
he knows this USC team.
So Nevada's going to be really gunning in this game, and USC's playing on the road for the first time. So I think you'll learn a lot about this group. They may lose, and it may be a good learning lesson for them if they do lose. But to see how they play, because Andy Enfield is going to want to go at Steve Alford as well. So, I don't think there's much love lost there.
No.
I think that they're going to be gunning for each other. So it'll be a good game to kind of decipher where they're at. So tape that one, watch it on Sunday, when you wake up before the NFL games or in between NFL games or whatever you do.
Sure.
Before Sunday's tunnel vision.
Yeah, exactly. That was a longer than a minute, Shotgun, but
he went longer than a minute.
I love how he just started with, I've seen some weird things. That's a great summary, Ryan.
Yeah.
Like basketball.
No.
What is this round ball?
No, they were shooting really well, and then the next game they didn't shoot well, but they turned the ball over. It was all kinds of weird stuff going on.
He still wants to talk about basketball.
Great job. Guys, I'm so shocked right now. Let's go to our first caller in the queue. Hello, you're live on Tunnel Vision. If you're still there.
Hello, do you guys hear me?
Yes,
yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm here. All right. So, hey, Ryan, I was listening to your podcast with Dan Weber, I think it was Tuesday, and I think we all agree it's a foregone conclusion that a change has got to be made pretty quickly. So with 2 weeks left in the season, with the signing days coming up, what level of confidence do you guys have that something's already in the works and that they can pull the trigger, a few days after the UCLA game to make the change, whether it's Urban Meyer that's the guy that we're all going after. What do you guys think?
Thanks for the call. Keely's on that podcast too, by the way, so you just
Okay,
kind of left
that's
her
okay.
out. I'm fairly confident that a change will be made. I am not fairly confident that someone's going to be signed and sealed and delivered the next day. I think there's some potential for that, especially depends what happens this weekend. But that seems less likely at this juncture. I know USC needs to make some kind of move. It might be a big enough move just announcing that there's going to be a switch. I just don't know if they're going to have everything together to have somebody ready. I mean, Urban Meyer would be the perfect one, but I think there's steps that need to still take place before something like that would happen.
Are you 36.7% exactly?
Shotgun knows.
No, it's USC, so I don't. There's
There's not a science.
That
at
would
all.
be completely different than anything that's ever happened at USC before. To have your ducks in a row, make a change really quick, and have an amazing path to success following the next day. That would be as foreign to USC as anything. So.
Yep. So.
But Mike Bohn's there. We'll see if he we'll see what he can do.
We shall see. Like I say, stay tuned. Thanks for the call. We appreciate it. Let's go to our last caller in the queue. Hello, you are live on television.
Hey, I like the sports calls and you guys answer. This is Pete the Poet from Pacific Palisades. This week's poem is entitled Cow Bears.
All right.
The Cow Bears play on artificial turf while the entire stands talks revolution and earth. Could anything be more sanctimonious or of less worth? The Cow Bears play on artificial turf. Now, one thing
Is that a haiku or is that a poem? I
don't think he's done yet.
Oh, sorry. I thought he was done.
Sorry,
How
Pete.
dare you? And one thing hasn't changed. That's their lack of running game, as implausible as Arizonans frolicking in the surf. The Cow Bears play on artificial turf.
Okay.
Now, People's Park is no longer around, and Blondie's Pizza was burned to the ground. So for whatever it's worth, the Cow Bears play on artificial turf. Could you people tell me your 3 favorite American poets? This was Pete the Poet from Pacific Palisades. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Pete.
you,
So there
Pete.
was multiple verses. I thought he was wrapping it up. It
No,
sounded
no.
like haiku-ish.
Mm-hmm.
I have no favorite poets. Just not a big poetry guy. Sorry. It's been a long time since I had to read them in
Shakespeare.
school.
We had a top 3, not even.
He said American poets. So.
Oh, wow. I don't know. Sorry.
Shakespeare considered a poet too?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, he wrote sonnets. That counts.
I guess
Anyway.
So. All right. Whatever. Yeah. It's been a long day already. But we still have to record.
We still have more to do.
We got a lot of work to do still.
True, which means it's perfect time for predictions. How do you think this one's gonna go?
Oh, geez, I didn't even think about this yet.
Yeah, usually I've thought about it before we get here, but I have not. The spread in the game, the last I checked, was USC favored by 6 points.
Oh, geez, they're not covering that.
I just think if you look at USC's last 2 road games, they've both been close. I think this is a feistier Cal team. I'm going to go that USC is going to win this one, but I think it's going to be more of like a field goal type of game. I think this is a game in the 20s. I'm going to go 24-23 USC, a little
Ooh.
squeaker.
I actually was thinking the same thing.
Really?
I think
Oh,
I changed
wow.
my score.
You could do the
I'll go
same one.
28-27 then.
Oh, okay.
Last
Wait,
year
no,
was
28-26. 28-26.
26, yeah.
Wait, I don't think they'll score that much. I got to go down instead. I'll go 2018 then.
2018. Okay.
Yeah.
I like that.
It was-
USC or Cal?
it was a good year.
Is that Cal's going to win a close? I mean, USC's going to win a close one.
I guess.
You got to put a name,
Yeah,
a
you
program
gotta
name
choose.
next to each score.
Oh.
Whoops.
No, I'll go 2018.
USC.
Yeah,
Winning.
missed extra point or something.
Okay.
Blocked extra point, not missed.
I'm
Special
gonna
teams. Our special.
go 21-17 USC.
Wow. So we're all going low scoring
Because
game.
when's the last time USC is covered as a favorite on the road? I know that's a difficult stat to pull up immediately, but it's got to be a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. This Cal offense doesn't score, and I'm
They
curious about
scored
Keaton.
last week, man.
Keaton again. Yeah, but it's Wazoo. I'm not sure.
So
Not sure.
Cal only has 4 interceptions on the year in the secondary, but I mean, could they get a couple in this one? I could see it. I mean, certainly it could happen. I don't know.
We shall see.
Good stuff.
Alrighty.
We're getting some predictions on.
We're getting a lot of predictions over here.
Nice.
And people were trying to make sense of Pete the Poet. You know, what can you do?
Yeah. Ryan Fox now wants to know, did the Cal Bears play on artificial turf? I got to know.
What if they don't after all that?
No, I'm pretty sure they do.
No, I know.
The new stadium, right? They did, which is kind of funny. Like that they.
I just remember they had radio controlled cars that they raced around all the coaches, and they put them in a Mario Kart video. It was great last year.
Nice. And the
Darn,
Tightwad Hill is pretty awesome too. So like other people that don't want to pay, they can sit up on the hill.
True.
Just watch the game from afar. I think you could still do that. I don't know. You could before the renovation. I'm pretty sure Tightwad Hill is still there. But and it's a great name for it too, Tightwad Hill.
It does have artificial turf.
Yeah.
Okay, good to know.
also-
Accurate poem.
I have not been to Memorial Stadium at night, so
Oh, neither have I.
I'm interested to see how different it is then.
You're like in
How
a
the fan-
neighborhood. It's like on hills and there's like
I know all that.
alley streets
I
everywhere.
got a ticket the last time I was in Berkeley parking
Wah, wah,
to cover
wah.
baseball. I was not very happy about it.
Anyway,
Yeah. Well,
that's gonna wrap it up. We'll
let's
be
wrap
back.
this puppy up.
We'll be back on Sunday for all our takes, reactions, and whatnot. You can call us, give us your thoughts as well. But that's going to wrap it up for today. That's Shotgun. That's Ryan. I'm Keely. We'll see y'all on Sunday. Bye.
See ya.